Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It is my second full day in Sevilla. If you missed my first travel vlog, I'm gonna link it down below because I went to the Real Alcazar or Royal Alcazar Palace, which was outstanding. I went to Plaza de España and I finished the evening at the Mushrooms of Sevilla. I think it's like Sietas de Sevilla, which is like the world's largest structure made out of wood, and it's made out of Finnish pine. Such an incredible day. So if you missed that, I will leave that link down below. But now it's day 2 and I did not overly schedule this day. My whole philosophy is really scheduling no more than 1 to 2 things per day on a trip. I don't want it to be overly overly structured. I like to leave some room for travel serendipity. So today at 6 p.m. I have booked a Devour food tour. Like, it's a food and wine and tapas tour of Sevilla. So that's like the evening activity, which I'm really looking forward to. But that means I've got the whole day to myself. It's about 12:30 right now. Let myself sleep in a bit. I had a delicious breakfast at my hotel. I'm staying at Hotel Giralda. If you didn't see that already, when the review is ready, I will leave it linked down below, and also just a link to the hotel if you want to check it out. But breakfast was amazing, and now I'm ready to go hit the streets of Sevilla. My plan for today is just to go and wander all of the beautiful tiny little streets of kind of the historic neighborhoods in the city center. So yeah, there's also a couple palacios. There's a couple other things on my list that the websites are really terrible to try and pre-book at. So I just thought I'd try and wander through, maybe rock up at a couple. So you'll probably know before I do what I get up to because I leave everything in the description box, so you can have a little look ahead if you want to see if that's useful to you. But yeah, let's go hit the road, walk our way into Sevilla. I made my way from Hotel Giralda to my first Palacio of the day. And my first Palacio is Casa de Pilatos. It also is called Pilates House. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I think of it like Pilates, but obviously that might not be the right pronunciation. But why this house is significant to visit is it's actually considered to be one of the finest examples of Andalusian architecture. And it blends 3 different architectural styles: Gothic, Mudejar, and Renaissance styles. And it's described as walking through a living timeline of Spanish design. And as you can see here, when you come in, you have this beautiful inner courtyard with beautiful sculptures and tiles, and it really does make a striking welcome. The Palacio itself was built in the 15th century by Pedro Enriquez de Quiñones and his wife Catalina de Rivera. They were apparently powerful nobles who wanted a home worthy of their status, and perhaps also to be a bit of the envy of Sevilla. So when you go in, you can explore a mix of internal rooms, a beautiful garden, that gorgeous inner courtyard. I especially loved the gardens here, and there are actually 2 different ones to share with you. Now, the name of Pilates House actually comes from a pilgrimage to Jerusalem in 1519, and the owner of the Palacio at the time measured the distance between his palace and a local shrine, mirroring the supposed difference from Pontius Pilates' palace and the Calvary. And now, while this is quite funny here actually, there are some interesting sculptures in there, so make sure you always look at all the little details. I kind of wonder the story behind that one, but I could not find it in my research. Now, if this Palacio looks familiar to you, you might have seen it appear in several Hollywood movies, including Lawrence of Arabia and Night and Day. And as a visitor, I can see what would make this wonderful for a Hollywood film set. You do feel like you're stepping back in time. And there's also over 150 types of azulos, which are the glazed ceramic tiles, which I know are quite famous in Portugal, but also you can find them in this part of Spain. And it makes it one of the largest collections in the world. So if you are interested in those, that's another fun fact for you. And again, you know, we talked about some of the amazing statues. These are authentic Roman statues that you see throughout. And some of them actually date back to over 2,000 years. So the way to think about coming to visit this Palacio is it's part museum, but also part archaeological showcase. Now, I found the rooms inside to be like a bit dark, but I did really love the tiles. I am really kind of fascinated by the artistry behind all of the Azulu kind of tiles and tile work, and just knowing how much that must have been A, to design them, and B, to also put them on the wall on such perfection. And I absolutely loved this part of the garden. I think this, without a doubt, was my favorite part of the Palacio. I always am a lover of parks and gardens. Those who watch my channel know that. And I love just the manicuring of all the topiaries here. There were so many beautiful, colorful flowers, different varieties. And could you imagine just living here and having this be your home garden where you could come with your coffee or tea, take a little stroll? That to me was quite amazing. And what's quite interesting about me thinking about this house this way is it's actually still a family home. So despite its historical fame, it's still owned by the Dukes of Medicinelli, one of Spain's most aristocratic families. So when you walk through the house, you don't actually see any evidence of a home that's lived in. So I'm not sure if it's just more ownership and title now, or perhaps if they close it every so often to have special events there, or maybe there's a family apartment or wing somewhere that we mortals are not given access to. But what I would say is it really is a lovely historical Palacio to visit. And if, like me, you are interested in architecture and gardens, in learning more about the history of places you go to, this is definitely a lovely place to spend some time in. So after my visit to the Palacio, even though I had had a pretty healthy sized brunch earlier in the day, I was working up a bit of an appetite. Not a huge one, but I could use perhaps a little snack because I was going to do this food and wine tour in the evening. So I wanted to eat something but not go too crazy. So I wandered my way back through the small streets of Sevilla in search of somewhere just for a little something to snack on. I was just doing a little bit of research of some of the places I had flagged on Google Maps, which I think is one of my best hacks to do. Do a little planning ahead of time, and then when hunger strikes, you've always got somewhere not too far away. And I went to a place called Mala Brunch, and I got myself a very refreshing berry and banana smoothie, which really hit the spot. And I also had a cappuccino with that. Again, I didn't want to go too crazy. This was a little bit in the afternoon at this point, but I wanted to have something to tide me over until my food and wine tour. So then I continued on to my next Palacio of the day, just taking in some of the beautiful historic sites of Sevilla. These are the Setas de Sevilla, which we did cover in my Sevilla travel vlog day 1. So if you missed that, I will leave that linked down below, also with my review of the Hotel Giralda. These are a really cool kind of newer architectural wonder in Sevilla, and they have an interesting story behind them, and it's a really cool travel experience. So continuing on, you can just see how beautiful Sevilla is. Part of the joy during the day is just wandering some of the small side streets, taking in the architecture, the leafy plants, the colors. It really does take your breath away. And then I arrived at my next Palacio, Palacio de la Dunas. And this one is also a very historic Palacio. It was originally built in the late 15th century. And the palace showcases a Gothic, Mudejar, and Renaissance style as well. So we're seeing a theme because our previous Palacio was also built around the same time and had that same blending of architectural styles. And the blend really does reflect the melting pot that is Sevilla. We also covered that when I went to visit the Royal Palace of Sevilla in my last video as well, which is so stunning. So if you are an architecture buff, you are going to love this city. Now, this Palacio was owned by royalty, and it has long belonged to the House of Alba, one of Spain's most prominent noble families. And in fact, the late Duchess of Alba, known for her eccentric style and enormous wealth, lived here for many years. And I think let's keep in mind that eccentric style, because I'll show you some of the interesting sculptures and interiors, which really does speak to someone with their own fabulous sense of style. Now, I loved the gardens as well at this Palacio. There were so many of them, more than the previous one. Overall, this was a much bigger Palacio overall. So it really is what I would call a green oasis filled with these lush courtyards. They have orange trees, they have fountains, exotic flowers, some beautiful sculptures. It really was what I would call a peaceful escape from the city of Sevilla. You feel like you're in your own world, almost like you found this wonderful secret garden. And this is, again, I always seek out beautiful gardens because I do feel I love city breaks for just there's so much to see and you can walk around through everything, but I also love being in nature. Now, I am not the only person to visit this Palacio. In fact, some far more famous people than yours truly have graced these beautiful grounds. Over the years, it's hosted famous guests like Jacqueline Kennedy, Grace Kelly, and even Ernest Hemingway. So can you imagine what these walls and gardens have been privy to and the stories they could tell? Oh, how I wish I could hear some of them. Now, there are some other interesting facts about this Palacio. There is a hidden chapel, which I don't actually think I got to see on my visit. I only read about it after, and it's apparently where private family ceremonies have taken place for centuries. So it really is a reminder that this Palacio really was a lived-in home and very special to the family that lived there. Now, just pausing here because this is actually on a lot of the special trees and some of the plants, there are placards throughout, which I do love when gardens do that because that tree in particular is quite old and historic. So it's also just a reminder of not rushing through an attraction when you go to check it out. Really take your time. This is why I don't schedule really more than one ticketed thing per day when I'm traveling. And it was great on this day. I didn't actually book tickets to either of the Palacios. I was very lucky. I guess I went in the middle of October and it was still incredibly warm. I think like 25 degrees Celsius plus every day. So you could get in your swimsuit in the pool at the hotel. I could walk around wearing little sundresses. And it was just a delight in October to be able to experience the warmth. But something about the time that I went, it also didn't feel so crowded. Now with the Real Alcazar Palace, I really had to book a ticket, but for these Palacios, I could just walk in. So it's really up to you how much you want to schedule, but I like that I could do the day at my own pace with having a leisurely breakfast, going from one Palacio to the other, and then I didn't feel time pressure when I was inside because I could take a picture of something that inspired me. I could really explore every nook and cranny because again, this Palacio, there's so many different inner outer courtyards, gardens, different architectural bits to look at. And what's actually special about this Palacio as well is it only opened to the public in 2016, and again, this was a world once reserved for aristocrats, artists, and kind of famous visiting celebrities. So it's really special to get to go see it. So I did enjoy it, and I did feel like the other Palacio was more known for the azulos. This one had some really interesting interiors, and even in some of the rooms, there are pictures of the family, which is quite special because you actually feel like you're visiting a real person's home. And I haven't seen something, I've gone to a lot of royal palaces and historic homes in my travels because I love them. And I thought that was just such a special personal touch, which was really wonderful because you could see the weddings, the famous occasions, things especially that were hosted in this Palacio. So, and there are placards throughout, so you understand the significance of what you're seeing. And again, I'm not going to go through each of them in detail because part of why I film these videos is to give you a bit of the history and significance, but I do want to encourage you, if you get a chance, to go visit yourself, and if you can't, there's so much information online where you can really go down that historical rabbit hole. But yes, I would say of the two Palacios, if I had to pick, this one here, the Palacio de las Dunas, would be my favorite of the two. But I would say they are both beautiful and highly worth a visit. And it is worth mentioning that there are other palacios that you can go visit in Sevilla. These are just the two that I had time to see on my trip, and they appealed to me the most because of the mix of history, architecture, and the stunning gardens. So one thing I also wanted to call out is there are some really incredible sculptures throughout this Palacio. We talked about the azulos at the previous Palacio, and there were some amazing sculptures there too. But I just felt like one of the things I would give you an insider tip on is really pay attention to the various things mounted to the wall. There's animals, there's sculptures, there's a lot of layers and hidden charming details to this Palacio that just the facial expressions on some of the sculptures really truly delighted me, and I just kept noticing how many of them there were throughout. And as we talked about the eccentric style, this is absolutely an example of that, and how fabulous, right? So after my visit to the Palacio, I decided to wander back through the streets of Sevilla, back to my hotel, Hotel Giralda, just to have a little rest. I had done a lot of steps and been out in the heat for quite a long time, so I brought my book up to the hotel pool, which I didn't film, and had a nice lovely rest, rehydrated a bit, had another coffee, and then I made my way over to where we had our meeting spot for my food and wine tour of Sevilla. So the tour that I wanted to do came as a recommendation from a friend. It's the Sevilla Food and Wine Tour by Devour. Now, they take you through quite a few stops in the evening. We actually started at Sevilla's oldest toilet, which is quite a hilarious thing. So I will leave that one linked down below because that's quite a funny one to share with you. But I don't want to ruin the tour for the tour company by revealing all of the places that we went to. So I thought instead I would just give you a little overview on the tour and talk a little bit about what I liked about the tour.
Not to a tavern to have wine with the men. So this is a toilet from the time when only men used to come to the bars. And this is the smallest toilet in Spain. Are you ready for that? Okay. I want to take a picture. It's still a working toilet, but it's a lot of fun. So people come here just to take pictures in the toilet.
Nice. Yes, so there you go. The smallest / oldest toilet in Sevilla. Who knew that would be a tourist attraction that I would go see, but it gave us a bit of a laugh, and I think this kind of underscores what the tours are all about. No, it's not about toilet touring, but It's about showing you a mix of historic Sevilla, quirky Sevilla, also sharing with you some of the food and wine and spirits history of Sevilla as well. So there are numerous stops throughout the tour. Each stop you have an alcoholic drink, but they can make modifications for people who do not drink. And you have some semblance of food. Some are more snacky bites. One stop we had a much more robust dinner. And what's great is you can kind of go at the pace that you want with the food that you want to eat or how much you want to drink. I think on my stop there were 6 alcoholic drinks, and I don't drink that much. So I think I had maybe a third to a half of each of the drinks, just a couple sips to try it. And I did try as much of the food as things that I would eat. I'm actually not really great with like things like red onions and peppers. So I just kind of opted around what I could and couldn't eat, but I found that I was incredibly full by the end of the tour, so don't worry, you will not go hungry. And I think there's a few reasons why you do tours like this. I think the first and foremost is these tour guides are so knowledgeable and they show you different places that perhaps you wouldn't find from looking at a travel blogger or creator like me. These are locals with the knowledge that will share with you places that are more well known to the locals and types of drinks and cuisine that are also well known to the locals. So I can do as much research as I want, but these are not places that even came up on my research screen. And then I think another reason why you do it is if you're open to socializing with others while you're traveling. As mentioned, this was a solo trip for me. So one hack that I like to do as a solo traveler is plan something every day where I will have conversations with people. Now, obviously when you're solo traveling, you always have conversations like when you go out for meals or whatnot. But I mean, have conversations in a more meaningful way. So booking a tour a day or something where it's like a free walking tour or a very specific kind of tour of an attraction is a really nice way to interact with others. And the nature of a food and kind of drinks tour is that it is much more sociable than the average tour. So we're sitting together at tables, we're getting to know each other, where we're from, commenting on the food and the drinks, and I just found the experience to be really lovely overall. So Devour has tours in many cities around the world, so I will leave a link to the tour I did specifically and their website down below, because I would highly recommend this. And also a really cool thing is when you finish the Devour tour, they send you a PDF of all of their other secret hidden spots in Sevilla. So I would also recommend maybe doing the Devour tours in the earlier part of your trip. So just in case there's some other great recommendations that you want to check out, you can take advantage of that. So after finishing the tour, we all said goodbye. I waddled my way home because I was a bit on the full side, but it was a beautiful evening in Sevilla. I was really enjoying just kind of leisurely stroll, seeing the city all lit up at night. The city really does come alive at night. I covered this a bit in my Hotel Giralda video, but even if some of the streets are kind of dark, I didn't ever really, it took me a little bit getting used to, but I never felt like I was unsafe in Sevilla. And I always kind of questioned it for a bit, especially when I was on a quiet road alone, but everything was really great and very, very easy to get around. So really loved it. So with that said, that wraps up my day 2 in Sevilla. I hope you enjoyed a bit of Palacio hopping and seeing the food and wine tour that I got up to from Devour. All places will be linked down below. I'm not going to link all the places on the Devour tour because I'm a big believer in supporting tours. So I think you should go and take the tour. I don't want you to try and, obviously you can see hints because I filmed the places we went to, but I'm not going to post them out of respect for the tour company. But I'll leave like the tour I did linked down below. And if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to leave a comment. Or if you found this helpful, please leave a comment as well. If you've been to Sevilla and you have any must-see or visit places, please leave a comment because sharing is always caring here on this channel. And last but certainly not least, would love it if you hit like on the video and also if you would subscribe. I am pretty young in my YouTube journey, although I know these videos live a lot longer on the internet. So would love it if you joined me for this wonderful YouTube journey. So thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you soon.